So I forgot to put something up about the book reviews live. So here I am last second. I know that means I probably won't catch many of you guys except on the replay crew. Okay. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Suzanne Titkemeyer. I wrote for Patheos No Longer Quivering for almost 10 years. I'm now working on my own projects, including doing my own YouTube things sometimes. I did my YouTube things 3 times yesterday because there was just such crazy BS that came out. So today I'm doing my usual thing, which is doing the book reviews. That's what I do on Saturday morning. Tomorrow I get to be on Claire Bear's channel. I'm excited. I'm excited about that. So there's that. And I'm starting to plan to do Love After Lockup reviews. So many people have asked me for that. And it is our our terrible obsession in this household between my husband and I. It's like, let's watch Love After Lockup. We can't get it on Friday night like everybody else, but it does pop up on Saturday on our saved things that we do on there, that we do on our Amazon Fire Stick. So we're getting ready to watch that after this. And I've already scrolled through Reddit, so I see what all the drama is. Okay, this morning I want to talk about Debi Pearl's book, Create a Better Brain Through Neuroplasticity. If you don't know who Debi Pearl is, let me give you the 50-cent tour. Debi Pearl is a cultural enforcer from Quiverful. Her and her husband, Michael, they run a ministry called No Greater Joy. There are 2 big publications they put together besides their No Greater Joy magazine are a book by the name of To Train Up a Child that is the most horrifying thing. It explains that you have to break your child's will and constantly wail on them from the time they're 6 months old on to make them behave. It's horrible. It's horrifying, the whole book. The other book that's big with them is Created to Be a Helpmeet, which Debi wrote, and it's all about having 0 rights. Hey, T King. Yeah, it's sick. It's sick. It was given to me when I first joined my old Quiverful church when I was dealing with a child with platelet levels problems. So I didn't follow any advice. I threw the book away rather than let anyone else read it. So the other book is Created to Be a Helpmeet, and it's all about how as a woman you have no rights, no anything. You should keep sweet, smile, and do whatever your husband wants. And there's so many revealing tales in there about how Michael Pearl treated Debi that it's just frightening stuff. It's laden with abuse. I don't recommend it for anybody. So Michael had a stroke. He had a stroke like 4 or 5 years ago, and Debi suddenly became a leading researcher on neuroplasticity. Now, neuroplasticity is a real thing. It's a really good thing. It's something they're studying. The science is not settled on it yet. Nobody really knows for sure what they're going to come up with, but they've discovered a few things about it. Not as much as what Debi's claiming. Debi puts together all these studies that have gone through the years, like the marshmallow cookie study, and extrapolates them out to where they never meant to go. Okay, so today she makes a bunch of claims about music and strokes. I know a little bit about music. I know a little bit about strokes. I'm getting ready to break them both down. Okay. She made a bunch of claims about music that have actually been debunked already. Her big thing is she says that all little children develop perfect pitch because mommy and daddy exposed them to, quote, quality music all the way back into the uterus. Well, here's where that's a problematic thing. All babies are born with perfect pitch. It's a phenomenon. Nobody knows exactly why they have perfect pitch, but they do. And by about 8 months old, most of them lose it. Some people can keep up with their perfect pitch their entire lives. Many people do not. They have lost that. And there's some disagreement in the world of brain development about why that happens and how that happens. It has more to do with language and how our brain processes language and anything else they think, but they're not 100% sure yet on that. There's all kinds of websites and teaching methods that claim they can train your child to have perfect pitch, but even those just meet with mixed success. Like I said, they haven't figured out why some people keep it and most of us lose it. And this is the kind of brain training that there's no settled anything on. So the rest of the chapter is all about how if you want to help your children, you have to have them listen to the right kind of music. And they must play a musical instrument. If you've noticed in Quiverful, hey, Mandy, if you noticed in Quiverful, if you look at the Duggars and everybody else, they have their kids play violins, piano, all kinds of other different instruments. And the theory is that it makes you a smarter person. It raises your IQ points. Well, you know, science used to say that, and now the book is even out on that. They're not. And I don't recall any of the Pearl children ever playing an instrument. So I find this very odd that she's now making these claims. The jury's out on if it playing an instrument raises your IQ points. Of course, there are benefits, just not the ones that Debbie claims in the book. What science is finding now is the exercise of the brain and the effort extended during the learning part of it that causes your IQ to go up much more than the actual music itself. And for all the craziness of Debbie claiming all this stuff about the right kind of music, studies show that the music that's preferred by people with high IQs tends to skew towards instrumental music, not vocals. And Debbie, in her good music, recommends Mozart. I don't have anything against Mozart. I like Mozart. When I was pregnant with my son, I listened continually with classical music, wouldn't even put headphones on my stomach because I was part of that Grow Your Kid to Be a Genius group and was going to take advantage of every single, these hairs are flying in my face, advantage I had to do that. Now, my son is very smart, but I don't know that if he would have been the same smart or not if I'd have just not done any of that stuff. I have no clue if that helped or not, because his sister, I just did not have time to do all that stuff with, and she is just as smart as he is, so who knows? So then Debbie moves on to the evils of rock and roll. So I have laughed about this one because through the years in Christianity, we have heard so much about the evils of rock and roll. Audio Adrenaline even made fun of the evils of rock and roll. Did a song called the Houseplant Song. It's actually pretty funny. I'm going to link to that in the description. It's talking about how all syncopated rhythm is going to send you to hell and how you're going to burn. And I have laughed so hard about that. My parents were similar. I can only listen to classical or religious music. Volume of music very controlled to train my ear. It's not necessarily a bad thing to have your kids listen to classical some. I did. But of course, we also listen to rock and roll and other stuff. We went to a church at What's-Her-Face is described as a rock and roll church. You know, I've never heard that phrase, rock and roll church. It's a charismatic church with contemporary worship music. I have heard that. So anyway, she never mentions the words rock and roll in the book. Debbie never mentions that. She just keeps saying the right kind of music. And then she makes all these claims that white noise, like fans, can permanently damage the hearing of your child, which I totally dispute that, because science has shown that white noise is actually helpful for some people. And I can honestly say in the times that we've had white noise in our house, like as right now, I have a fan going overhead that goes 24 hours a day in this particular room. I sleep better under that kind of white noise, and I always have. I grew up in the Deep South before we had air conditioning, where everybody had ceiling fans or else oscillating fans, and we ran them all night long. I'm here. Do you not see me? Did I drop out? So attic fans too, but attic fans are really noisy. I might have a problem with those, but we used those when I was a kid, and I can still hear perfectly fine. But don't let my experience stop you. Just research it. One of the things that she makes a point of that I think is one of the stupidest things, she claims that kids using earphones or those earbuds we all use. I use them too. I also have headphones I use sometimes. She claims that that will kill your hearing fastest because, listen to this, the sound waves get trapped and they bounce around in your ear and they kill off the nerve that causes hearing. You know, it's not like we're all playing music as loud as Pete Townsend did in The Who back in the 1960s that killed his hearing. Most of us that are listening to earphones are not playing it to that ear-splitting loudness. And I used to always gently remind my kids not to turn the music up all the way because you might damage your hearing. And like I said, poor Pete Townsend. But this idea that the sound waves are bouncing around, killing your nerves, science has debunked that in several different ways. Then she says that the noise levels at daycare are extremely damaging to thin-skulled infants and small children, and that they're sound bathed all day long in emotionally exhausting noise trauma. She claims not only does that cause hearing loss, but brain damage and lower IQs. You know, I have to wonder if Debbie would fall for the most ridiculous BS that I've seen here, which is sound bathing and sound gardens with bells and all kinds of silly stuff. You know, I happen to live in Tamarindo, Costa Rica, which seems to be, if you were going to do a woo type treatment, let me tell you something. Tamarindo is filled with woo. I've heard all kinds of woo, from healing your soul using sound gardens and sounds and stuff to doing the yogas on the beach while snorting essential oils and mainlining granola. I mean, I've heard it all since I've been here, and some of it has benefits, some small benefits, or they have what you would call the placebo effect. One of the doctors I like on Facebook, not on Facebook, on YouTube, he debunks a lot of things, and he has talked a lot about the placebo effect. It's not necessarily a bad thing. The placebo effect can be helpful in its own way. So here he is talking about the placebo effect, and a lot of things that Debbie is talking about are the opposite, the anti-placebo effect, and just trying to make you fearmonger, trying to make you fear. Then she starts talking about Gabby Giffords. Now, Gabby, if you remember, was shot in the head at a rally by somebody that was raised on the same nutty conspiracy theories that Debbie and Mike preach. She went on to talk about Gabby's recovery from the shot in the head, and said she only regained her speech by learning to sing the words. For the first time, Debbie is not wrong. That is actually how Gabby recovered her speech. And those are the kind of things that musical therapy and other therapies help. They figure out what it is that's going to work for you, and they help you out. Then she goes on to talk about a friend of hers whose husband had Parkinson's, and she kept telling him to play that quality music of Mozart and hymns for him, and she got blown off and the husband got worse. Silly, silly, silly. Not everything in this chapter is wrong or poisonous. I have seen legitimate music therapy at work and treatment facilities I worked at, a children's treatment facility, and it helps for some conditions. It's just not the huge panacea for everything that Debbie seems to think it is. She keeps repeating the lie about IQ improvement just by listening the right kind of music all the time around your babies to develop their brains and sound bathe them. Then towards the end of the chapter, she actually comes out and tells you what the right kind of music is. Classical music and hymns. She says, every other kind of music can harm you. And it's kind of wrong. You need to expose your children to all types of music, world music, instrumentals, songs from musicals, even that evil rock and roll and rap has been shown to help. Yeah, so that was that chapter. And I got to move on to the next one, which was Debbie talking about rewiring your brain after a stroke. Now, that's something I have researched quite a bit about because 3 years ago, I had a TIA, a tiny, tiny little bleed in my brain, a little tiny mini stroke. This past February, March, somewhere the end of February, beginning of March, I had a more serious one. I had a thalamic stroke, which was misdiagnosed as something else for a long time. And I've lost a lot of function, and I've had to go and get therapy and various things for it. That's helped. So I am frequently reading about that and coming across all kinds of interesting ideas. My own neurologist has said our brains are wonderful and that neuroplasticity happens without us even meaning to. Our brains will at least rewire around some things. He's a big believer in that. That's why I still try to walk. That's why, even though it's difficult, yesterday I had a bad walking day. I must have fallen down 6 times, but it was all in the pool. So that was all cool. I fell going down the pool steps. I fell on the pool steps right outside the pool. So it's like kind of like those weebles, except that I was wobbling and then falling down. So that is where I am with this. And when I wrote this, I'd only had one stroke when I did the review. So she starts this chapter by repeating all of her sketchy ideas about how music creates 10 zillion new roadways in your brain. She also claims you can completely rewire, remap, and reroute those roads in your brain after stroke. That's only partially true. You know, my neurologist and I have had long, long conversations, an email about this. The jury is still out. Science hasn't established well exactly how much of that goes on. If you Google rewiring your brain after a stroke, you'll find most of the pages and links about this lead straight to the scammiest, sketchiest medical clinics promoting treatments to, quote, heal strokes, like the one that Debbie took Mike to for him to get stem cells in his brain after a stroke. There was an article a couple of years ago out of Johns Hopkins who they did do a lot of research on using stem cells to treat things like MS, strokes, things like that. And it killed a lot of patients in that clinical trial. They stopped it. They killed so many people. So many people had bad outcomes. I guess die. And other people had bad outcomes. Let's just say they had a lot of people, had more people had bad outcomes than good outcomes. They stopped it. So this is not likely to be a way to recover from strokes. Everything about neuroplasticity is not established. There's no established treatments or anything like that yet. Scientists are thinking that it may eventually be a drug that will cause your brain to rewire. You're better off using established medicines and treatments that work, like reducing your blood pressure or thinning your blood if it's too thick, reducing your cholesterol. But you know, doctors like to use physical therapy, occupational therapy, not weird brain treatments immediately after a stroke. PT has been shown to help as long as you start it soon enough after a stroke. That's why during my TIA, I was encouraged to read on my iPad during and after. It's because my vision was affected, and reading would help with rewiring those brain connections, I was told. So then the rest of the chapter is Debbie bragging about her children, how she made them outstanding, exceptional, just premium individuals by her constant, quote, training of them. And we know what training means in the Pearl world. That usually involves a 1/4 inch plastic plumbing pipe or a wooden stick. It does not involve this sort of thing. It doesn't involve. So anyway, her and her training. She even goes so far as to claim she trained her babies to go on the potty immediately after they all started walking by using the clicker method. Now, the clicker method has its place mostly in training animals. I would not use that to train a human to do anything. I used to use it for my parrots. Clicker training works well with parrots. It doesn't necessarily work well with too many other individuals, especially not babies. And some of the things she's claiming are training are actually more like developmental milestones. No matter how much you might want to stop diapering early, that's not going to happen until the physical development is there to support that. And most experts seem to think that 18 months is about the median age when potty training usually works. And a lot of kids walk well before that. Then she went on to claim that the daughter with dyslexia, she cured her dyslexia by using sand table play. Oh, I think it's likely she just beat the girl until the girl hid her dyslexia from Deb. And then here, the most familiar place in Pearl world in the last 10 years, quote unquote, cell phone usage or excessive viewing of small screen peripheral vision. The lack of normal peripheral vision is a handicap that can often be avoided. Followed by this. When children are allowed to disengage from society and spend hours focused on a digital screen, their brains are being left idle. The offensive noises and psychedelic flashing colors that emit from the screen are unhealthy. Brain cells cannot be produced in brainless entertainment. Yes, let's let the festival of the cell phone in, because that is where Debbie is. Debbie hates cell phones beyond all things. She even follows it up with idiotic claims about watching SpongeBob SquarePants. Debbie claims there was an experiment involving watching SpongeBob versus a PBS show or drawing, and says that the study showed that after a mere 9 minutes, kids lost the ability to focus or remember. She cited a journal and a study that I was unable to find after doing quite a bit of searching for this online. This is what she had to say. Understand that a child's intellect as well as his soul will not develop into anything more than what is poured into him. She called the SpongeBob show the Cheetos of mental food, and then claims that children that watch cartoons like SpongeBob all end up obese. Well, I guess they aren't being fed the animal feed and dented cat food cans that Debbie and Mike got at one point to feed their kids. Debbie is sure that those kids are just getting fat. And then she shames mothers for claiming your own moods stop your kids' brains from developing. I find all the bashing of the cartoons, but especially SpongeBob SquarePants, pretty funny. Well, why? Because at one of the Costa Rican schools where they were teaching kids from 4 on up English that my husband taught at, a SpongeBob was a program that all the kids knew very well here. And you could actually use that to springboard into teaching about English, teaching English. So it's not without value. And watching SpongeBob, there aren't very many bad lessons that are given there. This is sort of weird morality in SpongeBob that isn't offensive. I would have to watch more of it to come up with totals, but it's like I'm watching it while I'm passing through a room and somebody's watching it. This is not a hill that Debbie wants to die on that early in the stupid book. There's all sorts of good brain building content available out there in the digital world. There's memory improving games to cartoons that teach kids how to code on a computer, and just all kinds of stuff out there. Teaching a child how to do their own research and how to reject ideas that are substandard. That's another thing you can do with the computer. It's especially important to learn how to do that in the computer because so many people push so many false narratives, fake news. You know, we had a president would scream, fake news. Well, there's a lot of fake news out there. And teaching somebody the critical thinking skills to be able to reject things that there's no basis for reality and figure out which ones do have reality in them. It's a skill. It's a skill. It's something that everybody needs to learn. And sadly, we have a lot of adults in this world that don't have that skill. They don't have a clue how to do that. All they know is how to regurgitate what's pushed into them. Nah. Okay, I'm probably going to be back tomorrow morning at some point with Love After Lockup because I'm getting ready to watch it. But I'm done with Debbie's book for today. This stupid book is, when I said when I was reading it the first time, I was eating my brain cells, the book that ate my brain. There's that. And then we're going to follow this up with Lori Alexander's book, The Power of the Transformed Wife. The reason I think that one's so bad is because there's so many toxic ideas floated in it. But more than that, it's just the way it's written. It's written in such a way that there's very little benefit to be pulled out of it. So we're gonna look at that one chapter by chapter, because that one's chock block full with all kinds of crazy. And then after that, I may look at another Debi Pearl book, or at Lori Alexander's Bible study, which I got so bored with that to put down after 2 chapters. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to belch in your face this morning. Crazy dieting here is going on, and I'm not liking it much. So you guys have a great weekend. I'll catch up with you farther down the road. I hope this worked. Who knows? Who knows if I have enough internet? So I'm going to go back and see. This is 26 minutes. Okay, so I will go look. You guys have a great day.